This is the MEELOD electric bike. When I first stumbled on it online, I honestly had a bunch of questions. Other bikes on the market either didn't give me the retro look I wanted, or they lacked the power and battery options that I was looking for. There wasn't a ton of info out there about this model, which made me even more curious and just a bit cautious. But the specs and the overall style were interesting enough for me to dive in and give it a shot. Let's talk about how it looks first. If you see this thing in person, you can't miss the retro moped vibes. It's got a thick, solid triangle frame that feels like it could survive almost anything, paired with these big 20 by 4-inch fat tires. It kind of reminds me of those classic mopeds, but all electric. The LED headlight stands out up front, oversized, a bit dramatic, but honestly really cool if you do any riding in low light. The seat is wide and cushy, more motorcycle than regular bicycle, which actually turned out to be a huge plus for comfort, especially on longer rides. The LCD display on the handlebars looks simple, but the information is all there. Speed, distance, battery level, nice and clear. From my experience, the first thing that jumped out was the battery. This is a big removable battery, and you really feel it when you pick up the bike. In my opinion, removable batteries make life so much easier because you can pop them off and charge inside. You don't have to lug the whole bike up the stairs or find a space next to a plug out in the garage or your apartment hallway. The battery comes in either a 960 Wh or 624 Wh size, which basically means it holds a lot of juice for those longer rides. Charging, it can take a while. Don't expect a full charge in an hour, but I always prefer a bigger battery and more range to something lighter that runs out of power halfway through a ride. Putting the bike together was surprisingly straightforward. I'm not an expert, and I was able to assemble it with just basic tools in under an hour. The instructions were clear enough, and everything essential, like the brakes and controls, felt solid right out of the box. I'd recommend giving the bolts and screws a once-over after your first ride, just to make sure nothing's worked itself loose. But otherwise, the whole assembly process was painless. Taking it out for that first ride was honestly a blast. The dual brushless motor has some serious pull, and if you're coming from a regular bike or a less powerful e-bike, you'll feel the difference the second you hit the throttle. It's rated up to a peak of 2,000 watts, which in simpler terms means you can hit up to 28 miles per hour on a flat stretch without too much effort. For commuting through the city or just hopping onto some local trails and gravel paths, it's perfect for people who like a bit of speed but still want control. The bike has 3 modes: pedal assist, full electric, and regular pedaling. In pedal assist, the motor helps you while you pedal, making climbs or long-distance riding way easier. In full electric mode, you can cruise without any leg effort, just using the twist throttle, very similar to a scooter or moped experience. And if you want to go old school, you can shut off the motor entirely and pedal. But I'll be real, with the weight of the bike and those big tires, it's not the most efficient pedaling bike out there. For quick stops and starts or urban traffic, full electric and pedal assist are where this thing shines. There's front suspension, which helps some with bumps, although there's no rear suspension. Personally, I noticed that on rougher roads or potholes, you'll still feel a hit, especially if you're used to full suspension mountain bikes. The fat tires help smooth things out, and they feel almost gluey and stable over sand, mud, or even patchy city roads. I did make a couple of little upgrades for safety and comfort, mainly swapping out the basic seat for a wider, spring-supported one after my first couple rides left me a little sore, especially since the original seat felt too narrow for me. I want to be honest about some quirks. On one of my test rides, I hit a pretty bad pothole at speed, and the battery actually popped loose from the frame. It gave me a scare, and probably wasn't great for the battery either. Once home, I picked up some Velcro straps to hold the battery in place a bit more securely, and I'd suggest doing something similar, at least if you ride rough roads often. The locking tab for the battery is there, but in my case it still slipped, so a cheap DIY solution gave me peace of mind. Riding at speed was fun. Using a GPS app and the built-in LCD, I found that the actual top speed was in the low 30 miles per hour range, which matches the manufacturer's claim. For range with the bigger battery and using mostly full throttle and high pedal assist, I got about 20 miles before the low battery indicator started blinking. I'm a taller rider and on the heavier side, so lighter folks, or those who take it easier, might squeeze out a few more miles. The fat tires, good brakes, and wide stance gave me confidence on downhill and tighter corners. From my perspective, some key features set this bike apart from others I've tried. I really appreciate the high-capacity removable battery. I think that single feature makes it perfect for anyone who needs reliable range or doesn't have space to park the whole bike indoors. The dual motor setup isn't just a spec on the box. You feel it every time you hit a slope or need to pull out from a dead stop in traffic. The twist throttle is intuitive, even if you're totally new to e-bikes or come from a scooter background, and it just makes stop-and-go city riding easier. I also like the overall design. The fat tires aren't just for show. They handle city potholes, gravel, even a shortcut across a park. The LED lights front and back are useful for riding at dusk or later, and the LCD display takes the guesswork out of speed and battery life. Assembly is beginner-friendly, so you're not stuck fighting with complicated wiring or hidden screws. And honestly, for the price, the combination of power, range, and style is not easy to find. That said, it's not a perfect one-size-fits-all ride. The harsh ride on rough streets might be uncomfortable for some, especially over long distances. The seat, while better than average, will probably need an upgrade if you're picky about comfort or have a wider frame like me. And the battery latch issue is something you'll want to watch out for. The headlight mount feels a little flimsy out of the box too, so if you plan to ride at night a lot, you might want to reinforce it or swap for something sturdier. In conclusion, if you're someone who's looking for an affordable, stylish e-bike with real power and a big battery for either commuting or weekend adventures, I'd recommend this MEELOD electric bike. It's not flawless, but it's a ton of fun to ride. It grabs attention everywhere I go, and it handles everything from daily errands to gravel trails without breaking a sweat. Even with a few little tweaks to make it your own, it's an easy bike to recommend for beginners or anyone upgrading from a basic e-bike. Please check the comments section for detailed information about the MEELOD electric bike. Thank you for watching.